Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. Yeah, Dominic, do your little wave. It's Friday, the end of another week, and Dominic, coming into today, hours before we get out into the studio, we thought this was just going to be another episode. One to take a number, episode 146, just get in line with the rest of them.
Yeah.
And then the last few hours happened and everything has just gone off the rails. All of a sudden, this is like two episodes in one.
Yeah, there's quite a bit to discuss.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd say the fight card is like the least of our, concerns. But there is a pretty important main event happening Saturday night. Big implications for that title picture for women's strawweight. We'll get into that. A few other fights on the card. But before we do, we start with those stinky fight announcements.
Stinky, huh?
We're actually going to go back-to-back Bellator here.
Starting Coker.
November 5th, Bellator 270. And there's a lot to get in with this one, but let's just start with what's on the surface here. The Bellator lightweight title will be on the line as Patricky Pitbull. That's right. The brother of Patricio, who had just lost his featherweight belt to AJ McKee at the end of the summer. He'll be going up against Peter Queally. That's a 1v4 matchup if you guys care about the Bellator rankings. Now, the question here, Dominic, that's really the focus of this, I guess. It's a good fight. We admit that. Good fight. Patricky Pitbull, very underrated. He's kind of been gone into his brother's shadow over the years. But a very good fighter in his own right and deserving of a title shot here. Peter Queally, another really good fighter. Not exactly sure, I guess, how he's going to do in his title opportunity here. Probably a bit unexpected for him. But the reason why this fight has come together is because Patricky's brother, Patricio, has decided to relinquish the last belt he had, that being the lightweight title. His reasonings apparently being that he wants to focus on reclaiming his featherweight belt from AJ McKee, and in the meantime didn't want to hold up his brother, Patricky, from getting the shot at the belt. So, Dominic, let's just focus on the real reason we're talking about this. Patricio Pitbull, is this the right move? He was a 2-division champion, and now he is, in a couple months, went to 0, and it's a big risk, right?
Yeah, for sure. This was definitely something that came out of the woodwork today, but I can't say I don't respect it. It's a bit heartwarming, looking out for his brother, letting him kind of take the reins. As you said, Patricky has been overshadowed by Patricio. I think it's pretty obvious for years now. But now, since Patricio lost his featherweight title, he's solely focused on going back down, getting revenge against AJ McKee. If you guys are loyal fans, you know that Noah has hinted at this could potentially be a trilogy that we see in the future. So it looks like the rematch is going to be in the making shortly. In the meantime, he gives up his belt at lightweight. I respect it for his brother, as well as the entire division can just continue to move on, and the two rightful guys are sitting there ready to go at it for the vacant title. And that's the event that I think is in Ireland as well. So it's going to be a really big event there for Bellator 270. And for Patricio, again, it's an interesting move, unexpected, but it does make sense in terms of where he's at in his career. I mean, he's older in a sense in terms of fight years. He's had a lot of fights. So it's going to be harder and harder to contain 2 belts. And when you have AJ McKee to worry about with one of them, it's probably best you prioritize him over anything else. So, again, it's interesting, but I like it. I don't hate it.
Really, I think this is if you're talking about, look, I think it's admirable, and I don't dislike the move because I know why he's doing it. More so for the brother side of things. Patricky is the number 1 ranked lightweight, and obviously those two aren't going to fight one another. So I respect that. I'm just talking in terms of, I guess, competitiveness or his standing as a fighter. I don't think this move makes much sense. I mean, you can say you want to focus on getting your belt back at featherweight, but who's to say AJ McKee doesn't try to go up to lightweight at some point and take that belt? So if you could hold a claim to that's an interesting matchup. You add 10 more pounds, maybe that does something to one of those guys. I think if you go based on those, I guess it's weird because I don't hate the move because of the reason, ultimately the reason he's doing it's very sound and good. And yes, heartwarming, sure, whatever. Butterflies, all that shit. But I just think in terms of you never want to just give up your belt. I mean, I just don't think that's something that I'm going to start telling other fighters that that's a good idea to do, to relinquish their belts if they decide they want to focus on a different division. I mean, it's just not a way that I like to see someone's title reign end, especially someone like Patricio Pitbull, who has been such a good, dominant champion for Bellator. You got to think about some of these other fighters. Yes, Peter Queally, for example, if he were to get a win over Patricio Pitbull at lightweight for that title, what that could do for him. Look at the rub AJ McKee got when he got that win over Pitbull. Now he's like the biggest star of Bellator, one of them that they've ever had.
Yeah.
Now nobody's ever really going to get that shine. And again, all for good reason. But there's two trains of thought. Familial side, very honorable, respectful, and that's the side I'm going to side with. But Dominic, I think in terms of that other side, that the more fighter perspective, I don't think it makes much sense. But, again, you got to put both sides together. I'll side with the family.
Hey, and can I just add one little quick tad bit here? Imagine Patricky can win that vacated belt. And Mr. AJ McKee does decide to venture up to lightweight in the future, goes for the other Pitbull brother, and just maybe becomes a doubleweight champ. Both of those title victories against the Pitbulls. I'm just saying.
There's a lot of things that got to align for that to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that does. That's not something that's at least in Scott Coker's head right now.
Right.
And that wouldn't even be the first time that you've seen that kind of thing. Kazushi Sakuraba, he was known as the Gracie Killer. He was literally taking out all the Gracies in Pride one by one. It's not the first time that this has happened. So it would be a very fun story, though, for Bellator to implement. You've even had the Shevchenko sisters get in on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, good fight. But we're going to transition to Bellator 271, happening a week later. Cris Cyborg, for the first time in 2021, she will be defending her women's featherweight title against the number 5 ranked Sinead Kavanaugh. Now, we obviously don't know a ton about her opponent Kavanaugh here, but we know how good Cris Cyborg has been, is, and will be. So it's an uphill battle for her opponent, but I'm happy to see Cris Cyborg get back in there. The Bellator women's division, these two divisions they have for their women, it's just been a little stale for a while. Feels like over the last few months we haven't had a ton of action going on there outside of who was the UFC veteran that got that big TKO in Bellator. She fought Shevchenko for a title a while back.
I'm gonna blank.
You know who I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she had. Outside of that, though, these divisions have felt a little stale.
Yeah.
The title fights haven't been all that exciting, and for Cris Cyborg to come back, it's gonna put a little life into these women's divisions, I think.
Yeah, always exciting to see a legend of women's MMA go out there. It's going to be her third title defense for Bellator, so it might be another domination. Maybe there's an upset brewing. You never know.
Well, let's not even consider the upset because obviously it is something you have to consider. But I refuse for one reason, Dominic, because I'll be very interested to see afterwards if Cris Cyborg wins in dominant fashion, like I'm sure we expect her to, does she perhaps call out a certain phenom that's waiting to be signed, Kayla Harrison? I was
thinking the same thing.
And the stars would align for that to be the case, and I'm very much intrigued if that'll happen, but maybe it won't, and we can just keep talking about it on here.
Right. Stir up some drama.
Mm-hmm. Here's one on November 13th. It's a day later from Bellator 271. we got our rebooking. Kevin Holland, Kyle Daukaus. They're running it back, and I think that's good.
Yep, there you go. We just broke that fight down. So.
Yeah. UFC 269, December 11th. One of our fights has unfortunately been removed. That being Montana De La Rosa has had to pull out of her fight with Maycee Barber. Now, Dominic has led to a lot of speculation. Maycee Barber posting, she was the one that kind of broke this news. I don't even think it's actually official yet that Montana is out of this fight. So we're kind of jumping the gun here a little bit, but Maycee put on her Instagram that Montana was out due to an injury. She actually called out the Happy Warrior for a rematch. And a lot of people were kind of like, nah.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
So Dominic, if the UFC looked to keep Maycee Barber on this card and get her a replacement, and honestly, it's not even like a late replacement. We're talking December 11th here.
Yeah, plenty of time.
So you have a lot of options here. Who would you like to see Maycee Barber go up against?
I mean, come on now. Listen, we weren't big, and we're still not big on matchups like this. For example, when Maycee fought Miranda Maverick, it's two of the biggest prospects in this women's flyweight division. We weren't huge on it. And then you look at the fight, and it's controversial. So it was just the shitty ending to a fight we didn't want to see yet. We wanted it in the future. But since we already had one of them, might as well do another one. And because Miss Casey O'Neill is now ranked number 14 in the women's flyweight division following her win this past Saturday against Antonina Shevchenko. She tweeted shortly thereafter that this all kind of came out, how she wants to take a break, rest for the remainder of the year, get back in early 2022, but there are just some temptations that are nudging her along to get back in there before the year's over. And I got to say, Maycee Barber's probably one of them. And I just got to add that stylistically, it's a damn good fight on paper too.
Yeah, I think I set that up perfectly for you. I just want to give myself a pat on the back there. I really gave you a moment to shine there, Dominic. So call me Rajon Rondo, the way I assist right now.
That's your guy. That's your boy.
But no, that's the matchup I would probably put together too. It's, again, I'm vocally against the two prospects fighting before they've really reached their ceiling. You just see it kind of come back to bite the UFC in the ass. Like, look at a great example is Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. Those two guys fought before either one of them were well known at all.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of held back the company from really rebooking that fight, I think, in some ways. I mean, I know Leon's, there's other reasons, but it hampers some potential big fights in the future. And, with Maycee Barber and with Casey O'Neill, I think they both have a lot of potential, not just as fighters in the octagon, but I do think that they not necessarily have star potential, because I'm not going to start throwing that word around, because there's very few people that cross that line and become big pay-per-view draws and all that. But I do think that they could, Maycee Barber is very controversial with the fan base. She's got a lot of people that do not like her. I don't really get it.
Yeah.
But, she's not a judge. She doesn't judge the fights. If you think Miranda Maverick beat her, that's fine.
Right.
Most people did. But in terms of, like, I don't know, her confidence or whatever, like, I don't feel like she's, a bitch or cocky or whatever. Like, I don't
get over it.
Well, all right. Woo.
Sorry.
Hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion. If they don't like her, they don't like her. If you think, you think she's overrated, whatever. But this would be a fight to really, it's a prove it fight for both women.
Exactly.
Because Maycee Barber could easily be on a 3-fight losing streak right now.
Yeah.
While you got Casey, who is 3-0 in the UFC, right? Or is she 4-0 now?
3-0, all via finish.
3-0 in the UFC. So you have two women that are in the exact same spot, basically, breaking into the top 15, but still yet to really make that jump in the top 10 and top 5 title contention. But they're moving in opposite directions. You got Maycee that's kind of feels like her tank's on E a little bit right now. Like she's looking for the next rest stop to try to get some gas, while Casey's just fucking zooming, going 100 on the freeway, baby.
Yeah.
And It's still interesting though, because I still think Maycee Barber is a really good talent, especially on the feet. And that's just what leads to the stylistic matchup here. Casey is a great grappler, but we're still yet to really see her show us much on the feet, at least for an extended period of time, while Maycee has shown that she can she'll bring them hams, man.
Yeah. The hamburine. If you know, you know.
No, nobody knows besides us. Let's go on to the last one. Go, and this is the biggest one of them all. He's the biggest guys, the biggest
I wasn't
fight.
expecting this today.
UFC 270 gets its headliner. At least I assume. And it's not at all the fight that I thought it was going to be, happening on January 22nd. I fully was expecting this spot to go to Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker too. Instead, to my surprise, Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane will battle it out, champion versus champion.
Yeah.
That makes me sick when the UFC does that shit. But to Ciryl's, give him some respect. He's an interim heavyweight champion. Francis Ngannou, the actual champion. So this fight's fantastic. It might be, I was hearing some whispers, Dominic, on Twitter and everywhere else. Some people are saying this might end up being one of the biggest heavyweight title fights of all time in terms of pure anticipation and fan interest. Do you think it really has that kind of legs?
It's big. We'll see how they begin to ramp up the promotional side as we get closer. I mean, I love it. We're huge Ciryl Gane fans. We're huge Francis Ngannou fans, regardless of what he did to our boy. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Stipe up there on the wall. But, I mean, it is huge. You've got the guy that is the Mike Tyson of MMA, quote unquote, and Francis Ngannou versus this undefeated Frenchman who has looked flawless every step of the way, yet to really even be tested in the octagon, Noah. You can only think he has to be tested in this fight. Francis is going to land, right? Right?
I mean, okay.
Right?
Well, let's just think about it like this. I mean, obviously, we're not going to get too much into like a fight breakdown here, but
yeah,
I'm gonna go with the same narrative. I said it for the Derek Lewis fight. I'm gonna say it here. Ciryl Gane has to be perfect for the entirety of that fight, which I have no doubt that he can do.
Yeah.
He's proven that he can do it already time and time again. Francis Ngannou has to be perfect for one punch. It really doesn't even have to be perfect. Did you see the Jairzinho Rosenstrike knockout?
He's just a touch Ciryl, basically.
That is not what I would call being perfect for one punch. Yeah. But look at the results.
Yeah.
The man hits you and you die. Now, Ciryl Gane is definitely going to be the most technically advanced heavyweight that Ngannou's ever going to face. He might be the most technologically, the most technically advanced heavyweight that we have ever seen in the UFC.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, in terms, especially just the well-roundedness of his game. And I just can't wait to see how Ngannou responds, because Lee looked like he had taken a big jump in that second Stipe fight.
That he did.
But is it enough? You know, that's just a big question here. I did predict, we had our one of our last special episodes we did probably about a month ago or a month and a half ago now. We predicted the champions for a year from now. I did say Francis Ngannou, I believe, in that episode. But I just have the feeling that him and Gane, I feel like this is the first of what could be multiple fights. These guys have a lot of staying power in this heavyweight division. I like Francis Ngannou's star potential. I will throw it out there. So I could see this becoming a really big deal fight. I don't know if it's going to be able to stack up with, like, if people are, you know, comparing this to like the biggest selling heavyweight fights of all time. Yeah. I mean, you got them Brock Lesnar, Shane Carwin. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I don't know if it's going to do that, but I think it could be a $500,000 buy type pay-per-view, and that'd be like Stipe DC3, which in my opinion is the biggest title fight in UFC history. So
regardless of weight class too. So
yeah, so I mean, I think that it could easily do that because Ngannou does have that kind of he's got that swagger, man.
now I'm like giddy thinking about this, and it's not till January, man.
That's gonna be one of those fights, Dominic, where I'm gonna be sitting there and my hands are gonna get real clammy.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be like sitting there like shoving them under my legs, like I hate this feeling. I haven't felt that way since Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler.
Yeah.
And like again, going into that fight, I didn't think I had a dog in it.
Yeah, right.
But then Charles Oliveira won, and I started screaming and jumping. And going into this fight, I still don't think I don't have a dog in it. I love Ngannou and Ciryl Gane. I love what they bring to the table. They're both very unique and different for this heavyweight division. They're adding a lot of life to it right now. You know, the heavyweight division's never been one of the UFC strongest divisions outside of, I guess, when it started. But I don't have like a dog in the fight. So, but I still feel just as nervous as if I'm watching a Stipe fight.
Exactly.
Well, Dominic, I think that's going to wrap it up for these fight announcements. Let's get into the wise words of Nick Diaz. Trained by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Oh, nice.
Dominic.
Oh.
No.
Oh, sorry.
That's not in the quote.
I'm sorry.
Now, I'm assuming you've heard of Joe Rogan and his podcast, correct?
Wait, who? No, I'm just kidding. Of course.
Yeah. Don't even play games. After you said you haven't watched The Sandlot, mister.
He's the $100 million man, baby.
Or played Mortal Kombat. You deserve to be ridiculed every time I bring up something popular.
Joe Rogan, baby.
So you've seen his podcast, correct?
I have a time or two, yeah.
I'm just so people understand. We are Joe Rogan fans, obviously, not just because of his impact on the UFC, but also, at least for me, I've watched his podcast quite often. I know I'm pretty sure you introduced me to it back in the day. So I know you've taken it you've dabbled a little bit, taking it for a spin, you know?
Yeah.
He has just been under attack. These last
poor guy.
Well, I'm sure he's not, I'm sure he can cry into his piles of hundreds. He doesn't care. But what started, I shouldn't say that he's starting to get attacked. What's starting to happen, Dominic, is I probably started noticing it in the last year and a half or so. The fan base, they're starting to more and more of this, while it's still a very minor part of UFC fans, it's becoming a little louder and louder. There's this group of people that really don't like Joe Rogan on commentary anymore and would rather him not be there anymore. That's kind of been something you'll hear a lot of. There's been some complaints about Rogan's commentary for certain fights that maybe even guys like us complained about, like Israel Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz, among others. Especially when that happens, then everybody's very vocal about it. And it's like, okay, there are some people that really don't like Joe Rogan's commentary. Now, Joe Rogan missed UFC 266. I guess he had a pre-planned hunting trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it appears he might be missing one of the – I don't know if he'll be at the Madison Square Garden show or not. So there's a chance he might be missing a couple in a row here for U.S. pay-per-views. He won't do 267, I don't think, because that'll be in Abu Dhabi.
Right, yeah.
Because of this, we had an article come out about a week ago, so we probably should have talked about this on Monday, but I thought it was relevant still to talk about here. Trent Reinsmith, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He wrote an article for Bloody Elbow, and it's an editorial, and the title, if I remember right, I might mess this up a little bit, was following UFC 266, or UFC 266 proved that the UFC can and should replace Joe Rogan. That's a big title. That's big shoes. Yeah. That's a big claim right there. Some of a lot of it was more focused on, some of his personal views or whatnot, some of his views on vaccines or mask, or I guess his thoughts on certain conspiracy theories or whatever. Maybe I didn't read it, if I'm being honest, but that was the understanding. There was even a claim in there about the picture that was kind of painted of Joe Rogan was that he's this guy that when he goes to these UFC events, he's like the last one in and the first one out. He gets paid the most money. So like all of his coworkers, think of Daniel Cormier, Joe Rogan, or John Anik, Michael Bisping, Paul Felder, all these people, Dominic Cruz, they like have this dislike towards him, and that it shows on the broadcast and stuff like that. So a lot of stuff being thrown around here. Well, this caused quite a debate online because this article did kind of probably for those fans that have felt like that him on commentary has ran its course, they felt a bit maybe validated because such a big entity like Bloody Elbow was sort of, I guess, confirming what they have been thinking for a while. And then you had the side that I would say is the more majority of people as of now, just based on how much of it I was seeing, of the defenders, and they were going hard in the paint for Joe Rogan, man.
Yeah.
So I was seeing a lot, and not even just, people like me and you, like average Joes.
Below average.
Yeah. But even people like John Anik, like Daniel Cormier, speaking up for him and saying that, what a great asset he is to the UFC, what an honor it is to work with him, all this stuff. So, Dominic, we know that me and you are fans of him, and I think it's pretty clear based on any time we've talked about him and his commentary in the past. Overall, we like Joe Rogan's commentary. We are not of the camp that's going to, we're not the guys. If you want to listen to a debate about if Joe Rogan should be replaced or not, this isn't really the place for that because we just both are fans of him and his commentary. However, what I think is an interesting discussion to be had is, do you believe that UFC 266 and maybe even more so just the events that he's not been on, especially the past couple of years in general, do you think the UFC at this point can replace Joe Rogan, even if at the end of the day they really shouldn't?
Can they? Yes. And we had a discussion about this topic not too long ago on one of the roundtables, but I say that in a positive way and in a no negative way whatsoever, because meaning that they can move on shows you how good the broadcasts still are without him, and the high quality commentary and analytical breakdowns that you get from his replacements, whether it be Paul Felder, who I think is he's, in my opinion, the best fighter turned commentator. I love listening to Paul Felder. Yes, I love Paul Felder. Dominic Cruz is incredible, though. Bisping, incredible. Daniel Cormier, obviously, he's been kind of the fighter that's been doing it the longest. He started in like 2016, so it's crazy to think he's been doing it for 5 years now. But Laura Sanko starting now on the Contender Series. I'm sure they're going to begin to work her into fight nights. I'd love to see Michael Chandler work into commentary, Anthony Smith, so on and so forth. All it does is prove to me that the UFC, as they continue to grow, is continuing to evolve their broadcasts and broaden their just the way they can reach out to different audiences of people with different breakdowns and the types of people they get behind the booth. And Joe Rogan is just the guy that millions of people across the world know, and he's obviously the biggest star, quote unquote, when he is there on a fight night. But it's not like people are, at the end of the day, buying pay-per-views just because Joe Rogan's there or not there. He's just an added bonus when he is. So, yes, he can be replaced, and it's not going to happen, like we said, and we don't believe it should. But again, I'm painting it in more of a positive way in terms of a takeaway than anything else.
So, yeah, we did talk about this in maybe slightly different terms.
Yeah.
It was just more, still the same kind of topic, but without obviously the editorial to go along with it, and obviously the debate being brought back up. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they can. I think they have a lot of talent, in the booth now. It's not just Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg anymore. You have John Anik is terrific. I mean, I always, Mike Goldberg might I think he gets a bit disrespected nowadays, but he was great for a long time, even if, maybe he wore out his welcome a little bit. Maybe you started to get tired of him after a while. He was great. He really was the voice of the Octagon for a long time. Joe Rogan was a necessity for the UFC to have in the early days.
Yeah.
He was a guy that already had a built-in following, not only stand-up comedian, but he was the host of Fear Factor, which, yes, it's not like he's winning Oscars or anything, but the UFC was already on Spike TV, which was kind of a low-brow TV network, Mansers and shit like that. I mean, not exactly the highest level of entertainment, I guess, for, I don't know. Point being, Joe Rogan added a lot of weight with his opinion at that time. He was able to, he was really, I mean, he knows how to break down fights. He knows the X's and O's better than most do. So at that time, when it was him and Goldberg, Mike Goldberg is not that kind of guy. He's really good at his job, but he's not some technical wizard. He's never done it. It's similar to me or you trying to talk about the X's and O's of a fight. Like, do we do it? Yeah. But is that our strength? No. We've never trained in it. Not our thing at all. However, now Rogan doesn't really have to do that because you have all these fighters, all these former fighters and current fighters who have joined the commentary team. His role has had to adapt because if you have him, Daniel Cormier, and John Anik in the booth, sure, Rogan might be more inclined to talk about some of these more technical aspects of the sport, more of the what you're seeing in the octagon type action than John Anik. But is he really going to do it by talking over Daniel Cormier? I don't think so. And he realizes that. So he's just sort of shifted more of his priorities. He has turned himself more into the entertainment side of the broadcast where he really does paint those pictures, that phrase that we like to use, where he does build these stories up in the fight. And sometimes that's caused him to, when he's not necessarily painted the best picture or maybe clung to a narrative that didn't really end up doing too much, some people have gotten a little annoyed by it or upset by it, and that's the risk you take. But I think he adds a lot. And actually, I would argue that UFC 266, if anything, that was the event that showed me that he's needed just as much as he ever has been. I personally was a little underwhelmed with the commentary in the main event. I mean, that's one of the best title fights of all time.
Yeah.
And did it really feel like it with the commentary?
I felt like it was still a massive fight, but maybe that's just me not paying as much attention.
Well, no, it's a massive fight. It's a massive fight. It's just, I mean, it's an awesome fight, but I don't think the commentary really added to it. And you could argue that if Joe Rogan was there, those big moments, Ortega's submissions, you would have fucking felt that if Joe Rogan was there.
Yeah.
And that's not a slight on any of those guys, Daniel Cormier or Paul Felder. It's just an outlier in what has otherwise been just, I mean, the guys have all been terrific. I'm surprised you did pick Paul Felder as your favorite, though. He's actually probably the one. I mean, I think he's great, but I'm a Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
Probably Michael Bisping guy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more of the entertainer side, I guess, than me.
Right.
Regardless, I think we're on the same page here in terms of Joe Rogan. It's the UFC can, but they won't. Joe Rogan's going to leave when he wants to leave.
Yeah.
And would it surprise me if he left soon? No. But also, I don't think he will. I wouldn't predict it. I think he still loves doing it. And, he's always been a guy that just kind of goes to the beat of his own drum and does what he wants to do. So obviously you're going to have, especially now when look at what he's really built for himself, especially in the last few years. Hell yeah, he's going to go take a hunting trip if he wants to instead of going to the UFC event. I mean, look how many UFC events he's done,
Yeah.
It's not he doesn't have to prioritize it like he used to. It's still it's a hobby.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So we got a few more news stories though before we get into this Saturday's UFC event. Starting with Miesha Tate and Aspen Ladd. This was a bit of a rivalry I didn't see coming. So, egg on our face. We may or may not have forgotten to talk about Aspen Ladd on Monday. I actually think Dominic just didn't want to talk about it, but I personally forgot. Obviously, Aspen Ladd had a very horrific scene at her weigh-in day. She was, I don't even know how to describe it, Dominic. She was shaking. It took him I think it was 10, 11 minutes to get her weighed properly because she was shaking so much. Didn't look good. And ultimately she couldn't make the weight. So what at first we heard was that the commission called off the fight. It actually turned out, from what I understand, that her opponent decided not to take the fight, which she's in her right to do so, and I don't blame her. However, following this is not Aspen Ladd's first rodeo with the weight issues. The Jermaine Durandamy fight was a very scary cut for her, one where she was in real bad shape and barely made it into the octagon just to get knocked out in 16 seconds. Tough one, tough scene there. But then, you just had such a long layoff for Aspen Ladd, and for this to be another kind of bump in the road for her, it really takes, for a lot of people, this is going to be a gut punch if you're an Aspen Ladd fan, I'm sure.
So myself.
Not only that, but to add on to the parade, Miesha Tate kind of going for the jugular here.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, out of nowhere. Kind of accusing Aspen Ladd of trying to cheat with her weight cut. You guys remember Daniel Cormier when he weighed in to fight Rumble Johnson the second time? He held on to the towel and probably got himself under the limit by doing so. Aspen had one of those big box-looking things surrounding her, so nobody sees her naked and whatnot. And Miesha was saying that that's why she was shaking so much, trying to, I don't know. Miesha was accusing her of a lot of things and saying how unprofessional it is for her to not make weight and all this stuff. And I don't know if Aspen Ladd ever directly responded, but I know her coach got involved and actually accused Miesha Tate of ducking them for a fight. Kind of a weird response, weird direction to go in there. Yeah. So I'm not even going to really talk about that. But Dominic, as I know you are a big Aspen Ladd fan, so I don't expect you to really, I guess, side with Miesha Tate here. But the big question here that's on everybody's mind, I've heard it both ways, that is kind of the end of Aspen Ladd is a true, from really ever reaching her potential. But then I'm also hearing that she still has a shot as long as she goes up to featherweight. So Dominic,
sorry.
The question is that move to featherweight, is that really going to be, I guess, what solves these problems for her? Or do you think that she can still get it done at bantamweight and, I guess, try to incorporate some of Miesha's thoughts in here too? Just what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I mean, it's very unfortunate because I've been a big believer in Aspen Ladd for the amount of time she's been in the UFC. I think she's a very good talent and obviously a future title contender. Can't really say a future champion because Amanda Nunes holds that throne right now, pretty obviously. But I don't like. I mean, in terms of her well-being and health, obviously you want Aspen to fight at the weight class that not only she can still feel her best naturally and size-wise and physique, but also just in terms of the way that she can compete. But when you look at featherweight, is it a good career move? Because there's no one there. It's not a division. There's Amanda, there's Felicia Spencer, and Danielle Wolf, and Norma Dumont, and sometimes Holly Holm when she decides to go to 145.
Other than that, there's 5 people, Dom.
I guess that's 5 people. It's not a division. Just look online. There's one picture, and it's Amanda Nunes. But again, if she can't make 135 successfully, you don't want her to literally kill herself on the scale like Miesha Tate kind of went in on a year 4. And Again, it was random for Misha to do this. Maybe there is kind of that past with. I know Misha said more in depth on her podcast. I guess a week after she beat Marion Renault, the UFC, or there was some sort of talk for her stepping in when Kie Son missed weight, or she didn't miss weight, but she fell ill when she was originally supposed to fight Aspen. They asked Misha to step in on a week's notice. She didn't want to because she had just fought. It didn't make sense for her. She couldn't rush and make the weight, all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. So maybe there was just some underlying heat tension, and that's kind of why she went out here. She started by really bashing Aspen in terms of being unprofessional, missing the weight, grabbing the towel, why she was shaking, all this stuff. Then she really went on the coach and kind of said out, yes, I respect Aspen as a fighter, just she should make weight, yada, yada, yada. Destroyed the coach, saying maybe it's the people around her that are making it harder for her to make the weight cut as well. So Misha just went off. It was I know Noah originally had this as a headline, a spicy cupcake or something like that.
It was well, because Misha's nickname's Cupcake.
Yeah,
so it was
yeah.
Cupcake with some spice was the original headline.
So there's another long-winded answer from me, but I tried to hit every bullet point there that you posed me with. But all in all, again, should she move to featherweight? If they're going to keep it as a division and she can healthily make it and challenge for a title, sure, do it. But if we're just going to keep fiddling with the division and doing one fight a year, it makes no sense. So, yeah.
Dominic, stop. Let's stop entertaining that this is still a division. It's not.
I'm the one that just was saying it.
No, you're saying, well, if they decide, there is no if. These people, let's be clear what they're saying here. They're saying that, look, and I'm not saying that they're in the wrong spot to say that, okay, should anybody really be giving advice, like, if you're not, in her corner or whatnot? No.
Yeah.
But if people are evaluating the situation and then their best judgment, they think it might be better for her to go up and weight, that's not a bad take, for her to say maybe bantamweight's just too much. However, acting like it's some good career move. I mean, I think even Chael Sonnen said this. Your boy, Chael Sonnen,
bad guy.
I'm pretty sure said that her moving to featherweight would be a great career move because she might be able to get a title shot much quicker. But this isn't a division.
Yeah.
Let's stop pretending like it is.
It's one-off title fights.
Didn't you name off every fighder? Did you say Megan Anderson? She's not even under contract.
No, I didn't say Megan Anderson. I named 5 people.
Sorry. There's no division. For her career, if Aspen Ladd can't make bantamweight, and I hate to talk like this considering what she just went through, but if she can't make bantamweight, she doesn't really have much of a future here.
Not in the UFC, no.
Unless she can beat Amanda Nunes at 145 pounds and somehow, carry that on. I mean, 145 pounds, she can go be in Bellator and be 145 pounds.
Yeah.
But the UFC, this is not a division. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
No division here.
Nobody's going to be able to see that, Dom. Stop it.
Hold on, my focus is off. It's just Amanda. Shit.
Now, I'm getting a little carried away here.
We're all over the place.
Miesha Tate,
damn it, Miesha.
on the other hand, she had a lot to say here, and I will say that while I do feel for Aspen Ladd, especially if the situation is what she said it was, which can I just be honest? Maybe I'm just that much of a dumb guy, but I have never considered a woman fighter having to go through a period while also cutting weight for a fight.
Can't imagine.
Like, I'd never thought of that. I've never thought of it ever.
And you got to think it happens probably all the time,
Well, if it does, then doesn't that kind of lessen Aspen's case here a little bit?
That was one of the tweets too. But
but I will say when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, like that would suck. Just having to deal with like cramps and stuff while you're also cutting weight, you're draining yourself of these fluids and whatnot. Doesn't sound fun of a process that's already not fun.
Right.
But I do think there's a part of me that does look at the situation and kind of go, I think Aspen Ladd's trying. Like at the end of the day, cutting weight is a legal form of cheating if we're looking at it at face value. You're basically cutting down so that way on fight night you could come in and be 15, 20 pounds above the weight you're supposed to be fighting at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a legal form of cheating. Aspen Ladd tried to come into fight week heavier than she probably should have, and therefore was not able to make this cut. Now, did her talking about, going through a period and stuff, that definitely did stick with me. But then I'm having women's fighters come out and say, well, I've gone through it and I turned out fine. Everybody's different. Everybody's bodies react different. So I'm trying to put one foot in on that camp of I feel for Aspen in that way, but one foot also in I think Aspen could really come into fight week at a lesser weight and just walk into the cage Saturday at a smaller weight than she does, but she doesn't want to because she wants that advantage.
Right.
So that's why I'm not really on her side here. And, I'll be honest, I know you're a big Aspen Ladd fan. I'm not. That's not really me. So I think that's why I think that's the root of our two different opinions here. But it's just this was a big wake-up call for her. It should be anyways. Because she talked a lot about Maycee, this and their last fight. She did. And for it to happen again and for Aspen to have to stay out even longer, it's not a good look. And then you got one of the most popular women's fighters in history calling you out all over social media. So that doesn't look good either. But, I don't really have anything else to say on the matter. We good on that one?
We're good.
All right. We also got Dana White on the Tuesday Night Contender post-fight press conference.
Another 35-minute presser?
Well, I don't know if it was – this one was a bit more quaint for Dana White. No big rants or anything, at least not in comparison to what we usually – or what we had gotten the last couple of weeks. The De La Hoya rant, that was an all-timer. But he did make an interesting point about Henry Cejudo. Henry has – apparently he's back in the USADA testing pool. Announced he's coming out of retirement. His intention to fight Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight title in the hopes of becoming a 3-division UFC champion. Dana White did not seem very keen on the matter. He said, "You after being retired for all this time, you want to come out and fight Volkanovski, skip to the front of the line over guys like Max Holloway and others." He's like, it's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
And while part of me wants to call that quote, I feel like I've heard someone say towards Dana White before when he has made certain title fights. So I want to call hypocrite here, but I won't because I get it. Business is business, whatever. But are you surprised at all that Dana White is not too interested in this fight, or is this kind of what you were expecting?
This is what I expected. I feel like him and Triple C have never been the best of friends anyway. And honestly, it just seems like Dana's so high on this Max and your fight. And honestly, the Max and Volk trilogy in general, it seems really front of mind for him. So this whole Cejudo thing, I think, really came out of nowhere. And again, the way that Henry kind of left the UFC was rather odd as well. And I feel that left a bitter taste in Dana's mouth. Not that Henry was some massive star, but he was doing big things at the time. I mean, he had won the flyweight title, defended against TJ on the first ESPN Plus card. Then he moved up. He won the bantamweight title by stopping Marlon Moraes. Then he defeated Dominic Cruz. I mean, he was doing some crazy stuff, man. Some unprecedented stuff at the time. So for him to just up and retire like that, and you could see when it happened, Dana in the back of the octagon when Henry retired is just like, you got to be shitting me right now. And now you look at the bantamweight division and all the drama that's happening at the top. It's just like, holy shit. He's probably looking at Henry like, you're the cause of all of this right now.
Oh,
but,
really?
No.
You think?
Yeah. But I'm not surprised by him saying this at all. I figured he wouldn't be too keen on it. And you said he's back in the USADA pool. I didn't know he re-entered, but either way, if he did or not, it's 4 to 6 months before he can even fight again. because you have to go through the testing and recycle and all that stuff. So
unless you're Brock Lesnar for UFC 200.
Unless you're Brock Lesnar for UFC 200. So either way, I just, like I kind of said when we talked about it on Friday, if it does happen, I still don't think it will be next for Volkanovski regardless. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I partially agree with what you're saying. I'm not super surprised that Dana's not interested in this. But at the same time, if this is really the reason, it's like, well, Max Holloway or Yair, I'm assuming is kind of if Yair wins, I'm assuming he also falls in line here. Yeah. But if that's really where his mindset is, for Max especially, why did you make that fight when you could have done, if he really wants the Max Volkanovski trilogy, he could have had it.
Yeah, he could have just not made this fight at all. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't dislike Max and Yair, great fight. I'm excited for it. I'm a little nervous for Yair, truthfully, but I think it could be really fun. Yair tends to kind of performs up to his competition sometimes, so it could be a lot of fun. But why would you book this fight if that's really what you're more interested in doing? I'm going to assume that Max and Yair is going to be at least a pretty solid fight in terms of action.
You would think.
So, maybe Max does replicate what he did to Calvin Kattar, but to expect that going in is blasphemous, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, how can you expect that kind of performance twice in a row?
Yeah.
So I do think Max might take some damage in this. I mean, I do. Yair's a very fluid striker, very just wild, and throws a lot of creative strikes, a lot of spinning shit that, you get caught with, it might hurt you a little bit.
Backward, upward elbows.
Yeah. So, let's say Max wins. I don't think he's going to be ready to go in 2 months,
Yeah.
And that's why I thought it might be a good opportunity if Volkanovski, I felt like even though he took some damage from Ortega, but I felt like he could turn around decent, depending on how quickly, 4 or 5 months, I feel like he could get back in there. I was like, the Cejudo fight might make sense. It's a great fight if you're Volkanovski, because again, it's an advantage that you will never have again in that division.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he will win it. I mean, Henry Cejudo is one of the best combat sport athletes of all time. We'll stand by that. But I digress. I'm just a bit. I'm not really. I'm not understanding where the priorities are here. Maybe there's another. Maybe Dana. Maybe someone else ends up getting that title shot. Maybe it's not even Henry. Maybe someone like the Korean Zombie somehow gets a title shot because of a lot of this. I mean, Ortega's out for a while, obviously, and just fought for the title. Max and Yair could end up being some war that puts both guys on the shelf. You got Zabit coming back. Maybe it was Zabit going to jump in for a title. You got the Korean Zombie. You get Chikadze out there. I mean, there's some good options that if they can't go with Max, I just feel like Henry doing all this. I thought maybe there might be maybe him and Dana had already talked about it or something.
Yeah.
That was kind of how I felt, but I don't know. I'm not understanding the direction of the featherweight division right now. I hope I get more clarity on it. I think I'll just have to wait till Max and Yair actually fight in November before I get that, though.
1 month remains.
Yep. And the last one. January 1st, 2022 will be a remarkable day, Dominic, and I'm going to tell you why.
Tell me.
Because Bellator main events will finally be 5 rounds.
Well, we're taking credit for this.
I don't know how you do it, Dominic. I don't know how you do it. I can't be so bold. When I saw literally every single person on Twitter, every MMA podcast talk about it, I can't be so bold as to go, they must have watched our episode Monday.
Clearly. It's obvious.
So are you happy? Are you happy about 5-round main events?
You're welcome, fight fans. The Joeys have delivered once again, baby.
Stop. Please stop.
Hey, did you actually say the announcement? I'm already blanking if you did or not. You did.
Yeah.
Bellator's going 5
events.
round non-title fight main events. Yeah. It's about damn time. It's about damn time.
10 years too late.
Exactly. It only took a decade.
To the MMA community out there, this is a victory for you because you guys bullied Scott Coker into changing this. So, yeah, I'm excited about it. And it should be the way it is. So, awesome.
All right.
Let's talk about Contender Series.
Tell me.
Week 6 happened Tuesday night.
Man.
And dare I say, Dominic, I told you I've been going back and watching, from the beginning for Contender Series. I'm halfway through season 2. So I've seen all of season 5, and then from season 1 to halfway through season 2. And I've probably seen a couple episodes scattered about, but I just don't have much memory of them. So going back and rewatching everything. From top to bottom, this is the best fight card the Contender Series has ever had. Not a single misstep on this card. Everybody on this card came and brought it. The winners looked fantastic. So, Dominic, do you agree with my sentiment on that? And also, while you're at it, if you can remember, because I'm throwing so many questions at you, give your standout performance of the night.
This is incredible. Incredible night of Contender Series. Off the top of my head, I'd have to say it's definitely one of the top episodes of all time in terms of top to bottom. First fight of the night to the last fight. Nuts. 4 finishes. The one fight that went the distance was absolutely nuts. And that's going to be my biggest standout. I loved the flyweight bout between Carlos Hernandez and Daniel Barez. I thought it was an incredible fight. They went back and forth, tit for tat. Carlos faced a lot of adversity in the first round, thought he lost the first round, came back strong in the second and third and looked incredible. And honestly, even for Barez, I felt that was one of the ones where the loser could have gotten it. I'm okay that he didn't. I'm just saying he could have. It was such a good fight, especially in the flyweight division. It's so thin. You can never go wrong with giving out 2 contracts instead of 1. But Carlos Hernandez, to face adversity again, I like to see that every now and again, as long as you're not getting your ass beat or anything. But to face adversity, come back strong and look impeccable, especially in that third round where his gas tank never faltered. And that's where Barez really started to fade. He just kept pouring it on, kept looking for the finish. That's what Dana looks for. That's what happens on the Contender Series. I loved the flyweight scrap.
Yeah, 4 contracts were given out. And what's so funny, Dominic, is you were sitting there talking about, oh, what a great fight I watched. And then you said Carlos Hernandez and Daniel Barez. And it was a great fight.
Yeah.
But I bet every person listening that watched Contender Series thought you were about to talk about Genaro Valdez and Patrick White, which just shows the quality of this card. I mean, you had 2 fights that Dana might have had a point a couple weeks ago. He called out the media and said, you guys got to start considering some of these Contender Series fights for your fight of the year discussions. Yeah. We saw 2 of them here. And now I will give Hernandez and Barez the nod in terms of technical ability and, more of that potential side of things. They looked more like long-term investments, if you will. Valdez and Patrick White, that was just what's the word? What's the word you use? A slobber knocker. That's a Dominic Salee word right there. These were 2 guys that literally just played rock'em sock'em robots right in front of each other. And, Valdez was a huge favorite here, 6-1, almost 7-1, I think. And Patrick White really laid it on him early, was really beating his ass, but both guys at different points this fight barely went over a round. It was done in 44 seconds of round number 2. But, man, it felt like the momentum was shifting so often in this fight. It would look like one guy was done and exhausted. Then the other guy was done and exhausted. Patrick White ends up being the one that kind of folds in the end. But I'm sure he'll be back. Valdez, shout out to you for putting on a hell of a performance. Wasn't sure if he was going to get a contract just because ultimately it was, all defense out the window, all technical ability out the window. This was literally just throwing hands at each other. But you know what? There's a place for that in this sport. We could sit here and talk about the beauty of the technique and, how fun that is. But come on, Dominic. There's a part of you that loves these kind of fights too. These little messy, dirty fights right here.
Hey, it's that beautiful chaos, baby.
Yeah. So my standout performance is probably going to be Mike Malott.
Oh,
Um,
I thought your standout was okay.
no,
Okay,
I thought you were going to say Mike Malott. So
okay, fair enough.
I'm going to give Mike Malott a shout out because he did look fantastic. He was in the main event and got the submission in, what was it, 39 seconds.
He's like, all right, I'm out.
Basically, you saw a guy that went in there, and also very interesting note. I'm pretty sure this was his first or second fight since 2017. He took like an extended hiatus from MMA. Apparently, he was like a really good boxer or kickboxer, and he like fell in love with jiu-jitsu. Got his black belt, started coaching jiu-jitsu, and now he's making a run back in MMA. So interesting story there. I don't know if I have all the neat details in there, but Canadian guy,
Yeah.
Canadians love their MMA fighters. And in this performance, he basically went in there. I'm sure he had a game plan, but once the fight came to him, he saw a guy that was able to adapt and take advantage of openings that he was able to find in the fight. Well, one of those last names, Smotritsky. He kind of exposed his neck when he was shooting. I think he was shooting for a takedown or something. And and Malott just immediately gets a hold of that neck, and it was
snatched it.
I mean, just so quickly was able to flow into it after trying to defend the takedown.
It was beautiful.
Great stuff, man. I mean, how could that not be a standout? I will say my real standout
yeah, exactly.
is the one fucking winner who didn't get the contract. Are you serious, Dana?
Come on,
Dana knew. He knew. He's like, Noah's loving this night of fight so much. Like, he's been shitting on the Contender series all season, and now he's loving it. So I'm going to give the guy that he likes most. I'm going to tell him, you can't get a contract. You got to come on Dana White looking for a fight.
On YouTube.
1 million views in 24 hours, whatever. But no, Joseph Holmes looked fantastic. He got a submission victory over Shante Barnes. He methodically pieced apart Shante Barnes. It was probably the least exciting fight on the card. I mean, I don't know. Mike Malott, 39 seconds. Like, is that really much of a fight? But, I mean, it was probably the least exciting fight, a slower pace. But I just saw Joseph Holmes looked like a far superior fighter in the cage. And that really showed I'm pretty sure he didn't even get the choke fully in. It was around the chin.
Yeah, it was on. Yeah.
Which is, it shows the kind of squeeze that guy's has. So hopefully he gets that contract after he goes and fights on Dana White looking for a fight. But I was very disappointed he didn't get a contract. But I'm sure he'll win and get in, and then I'll be happy.
There you go. Noah's new favorite fighter.
Yep. Let's move on to Saturday night. So, Dominic, should I say this now? I'm going to say it now.
Sure, go ahead.
So, the month of October ends. The month of October does have a lot to look forward to for MMA. UFC 267's at the end of the month. PFL playoffs. We got some good Bellator main events coming up.
Yep, Grand Prix.
One of the weaker parts of this month for MMA has got to be these UFC fight nights.
I've seen better.
Don't get me wrong. We're getting a great main event and a cut. Well, this is a good main event. Let's skip over next week. And then you get Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori, which is an awesome fight.
If it happens.
Yeah, true. And maybe it'll probably be Marvin Vettori, Kelvin Gastelum. But anyways.
Yeah.
The problem is that we don't watch these cards for just the top fight. We know that.
Yes.
It obviously helps, but we like to watch a card of good fights. I'm not saying they got to be a bunch of ranked contenders and stuff, but these cards are just very thin. Dare I say, Dominic, they feel a lot like boxing cards. Where it's essentially the one fight and everything else is kind of like
there.
And it starts this Saturday. But there are some good fights on here, and we're going to talk about them. But, just not one of the stronger months for the fight nights of the UFC. But it's going to end on a very high note. UFC 267 leads directly into first week in November with
Yeah,
UFC
I mean,
268.
shit.
I mean, they're stacking their pay-per-views so much that, like,
Yeah.
hey,
They're
man,
out of ranked fighters to
that's
put
what
on
I'm
the fight
paying.
nights.
That's what I'm paying the majority of the money for. So
Yeah.
like, I ain't gonna complain too much. I'm just more of an observation. I'll still, as long as the fights deliver,
Exactly.
it won't matter. But our main event, this is a fight that I definitely expect some good things from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because Mackenzie Dern goes up against Marina Rodriguez. These are probably the two women in this division with the most momentum outside of maybe the champion, Rosa OUT. Both have looked fantastic in different ways. Mackenzie Dern is a jiu-jitsu ace who has shown a willingness to stand in the pocket over her last couple fights. That fight with Virna Jandiroba was awesome fight. And even though neither woman was a natural striker, Mackenzie bit down on the mouthpiece and was like, let's swing, bitch. Marina Rodriguez is all gas, no break in the striking. I mean, look at what she did to your poor girl, Amanda Ribas.
That was hard to watch.
And she looked fantastic against Michelle Waterson, I thought.
Yes, she did.
And I even thought in that fight, again, Michelle Waterson is not the grappler that Mackenzie Dern is or Carla Esparza was, but I thought she showed at least some smarter takedown defense in that fight.
Improvements, yeah.
Yeah. But, Dominic, the question that's got to be on anybody's mind who understands these two fighters is they both excel in one aspect truly of mixed martial arts, and the other has been something they've been working on that they've had exploited in the past. So, Dominic, do you trust Mackenzie Dern striking or Marina Rodriguez's grappling more? And ultimately, do you think that that's going to have to come into play for that person to win this fight?
Yeah, so I trust Mackenzie Dern's striking more than Marina's grappling and jiu-jitsu. And that's just because not only is she showing an evolution in her striking game, but it's also with one of the best striking coaches in the world, and Jason Perillo. That dude is an ace when it comes to striking and boxing. So, and you look at the camp that he has with Bisping, Luke Rockhold, Cris Cyborg, the list goes on and on. But yeah, I think I favor Dern in the striking, and that's also because she can use her advancements in that realm to set up the takedowns easier, to initiate the grappling transitions better, and then to inevitably look for the submission that we all know she's going to try and get. For Marina, she did show improvements against Michelle Waterson. Again, not the level of grappler and jiu-jitsu that Mackenzie Dern is, but still improvements nonetheless. But you saw how she looked in, the fights where she lost or has had draws, because she's got 2 draws in the UFC. Her record is 4-1-2. It's one of the weirdest records you'll see. But it shows because she will get 10-8'd. Is that a term? 10-8'd when she gets grappled. See the Carla Esparza fight, for example. So, again, if she continues these improvements, and we haven't seen her since when did she fight? It was January for Amanda.
It was
June
like
or
May.
something. May or June for Waterson. So it's been a little while since we've seen her. So I don't doubt that she's continued to work on that aspect of her game. But Mackenzie Dern is a world champion, world-class jiu-jitsu ace. But if Marina can keep it on the feet, can stuff some takedowns, and prolong it in the striking department, that's when Mackenzie's going to not want to be there anymore, because Marina is as dangerous as they come in this division in terms of the striking, her Muay Thai, her clinch, distance, close range, it doesn't matter. She has power to back it up too, and she showed that when she literally knocked out Amanda Ribas, not once, but twice in their fight back in January. So I'm very excited for this fight. It is a grappler striker, but there's more to it when you kind of dig in as we are here. And it is a big deal. I think it deserves more attention than what it's getting, because champion aspirations are, in fact, on the horizon. It can't be said enough.
Yeah, I mean, I firmly believe the winner of this fight will be fighting the winner of Rose and Queally. Barring, I guess, maybe if Queally wins, then they do some sort of trilogy, but I digress. I look at this fight as like a number one contender fight. And not a lot of people, I think, are giving it that kind of respect, and that's not really on the people.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think the UFC is fully committed to that, which is, that's fine. They don't have to commit to it right now. It's number 4 in Dern and number 6 in Rodriguez. But I want to start with Rodriguez. I've really enjoyed the run she's been on as of late. Basically this year, she's looked like a new fighter in some ways. Now, I say that, but the matchups have been more favorable, I guess, compared to when she was fighting Carla Esparza. That was, one of the tougher fights for her in this division. And Mackenzie Dern, unfortunately for Marina, falls into that category of a kryptonite level matchup for her.
Yeah.
That it is going to be a hard time for her to stay off her back. But if she can do it, if she has made those changes into her game and really focused on that, Mackenzie Dern, to her credit, has shown a willingness to strike. She has shown improvement in that striking. I will say I trust her striking more. Actually, you know what's strange, Dominic? I think Mackenzie Dern's striking is better than Marina Rodriguez's grappling, but I think neither skill is going to be good enough to even hang with their opponent. So what I worry about here, I actually am going to side with Marina's grappling that I trust more. Hence, and this is why I'm wording it. The wording here is very meticulous.
You're setting it up. Yeah.
I didn't intend it to be, but I'm going to roll with it. So the reason why I trust her grappling more is because Marina knows, at least I'm going to assume, she knows she has no shot in hell if she's on her back in this fight.
Yeah.
Mackenzie's gotten a lot of confidence from fighting Virna and others where she's looked pretty good on the feet. The reason why I don't trust her striking is because I worry she might almost fall in love too much with the striking to the point where she's like, you know what? Maybe I can hang with someone like Marina Rodriguez, and bam, done.
Yeah.
You're fucking waking up to some smelling salts or whatever.
Yeah.
So I that's the difference here. So that's where I trust Marina more. That I feel like she knows where her skills lie and is going to focus on that, while Mackenzie seems like she's kind of enjoying these aspects that she's really not focused on until recently. But it's just not – her striking's not – no matter how good it is at this point, it's not Marina Rodriguez level.
No.
It's going to be a bad day for her if she decides to stand with Marina for longer than
she needs to be. Yeah, exactly.
So at the end of the day, though, I do think there's something to be said about this fight. I think a big win for either woman could really, really force the UFC to maybe reconsider that Carla Esparza title fight again. I know I kind of forgot about her when I said my point at the beginning about thinking the title shot will be next. But, it's the UFC could have put Carla in a title fight if they wanted to. Doesn't seem like they really did. If Marina or Mackenzie come in here and put on a good performance, great performance, it's going to be hard to deny them either because, let's face it, they're both just more exciting fighters than Carla Esparza.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not how we do
outside of her
things,
last performance. Right.
But I'm just saying that's – and yes, you're right. That performance over Yan Xiaonan was a stamp, so we thought.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
But I think Carla's resume has carried. I think it's carried with her some negativity almost in that, a bit of a boring fighter, if you will. All in all, though, great fight. I am very much looking forward to this one.
Yes.
Let's get into the rest. We got 3 fights to go over here. The co-main event, not a great co-main event, but the fight itself I think could be good.
Fireworks.
Randy Brown against Jared Gooden. These are two guys that, Randy Brown's probably the one that more fans will know of, will have heard of. He's been in a lot of fun fights over the years. But on the receiving end of some tough knockouts, the Nico Price knockout, I believe Randy Brown was the one that was in Nico's guard, kind of, and Nico hammer-fisted him off his back for the knockout, I think. But point being, I think this fight has the makings to be a real, fight of the night level fight here.
For sure.
Jared Gooden's going to have that power. He's the bigger guy. He's a brick house, man. The dude's fucking built. He's shredded.
Yeah.
And Randy Brown's got more of the lanky, probably going to have the reach advantage. I don't really know what those measurables look like, but
Yep.
I digress. I like that kind of matchup here. Randy Brown had an amazing submission over Cowboy Oliveira back in the spring with didn't even use his second arm and got the guillotine choke. So, like, just saying, man, like, this fight could get really fun because both guys like to finish fights, and they do it in pretty fun fashion.
Yeah, these guys combined to finish 25 out of 31. It's going to be fun for however long it lasts. Gooden, the real strong, bulky guy. Randy Brown is 6'3", 78-inch reach, so he's long, rangy, but he's well-rounded on the ground. What's weird, though, and I saw it obviously as I take my notes, Gooden has 6 submissions in his own right. So both these guys can get the job done anywhere it goes, and that always makes it more fan-friendly. Yes, it's odd seeing this as a co-main, but as Noah said, on paper, and I think truly, no doubt, when they're in the octagon, this is going to be an exciting fight. There's going to be a stamp. Someone's going to get finished. I can't wait to see who that may be and who's going to come out with a statement made.
2 top 15 flyweights, Tim Elliott and Matheus Nicolau. Nicolau coming off of that, I don't know if that was his last fight, but he did get a win over Manel Cape. That was a really close fight. Nicolau looked great. I think he's only 2-0 in the UFC, so he's really making a splash in here in his so far short UFC tenure. While Tim Elliott's been around forever. This is the guy that won the Ultimate Fighter and got to fight Demetrius Johnson and actually gave him a decent run for his money compared to how most guys fared against Demetrius. But Tim Elliott's ultimately been kind of that. He's been that gatekeeper type. He's probably lost as many fights as he's won in the UFC, but he always brings out the best out of his opponents and really brings the fight to him. And here against Nicolau, it's a lot on Nicolau's shoulders here to prove it that he's for real, because the experience advantage going to be on Tim Elliott's side. And I really like Tim Elliott. I do kind of wonder if how many more losses he can really take before the UFC might give him the pink slip, so to speak. So, maybe he has some added motivation because of that, because he's, a bit of a 500 fighter. And all in all, though, should be a good one.
Yeah, I think it will be. I mean, Elliott is kind of that veteran of the division, 2 stints in the UFC, 6-9 overall, which I thought was odd. And I will just say, and this is no slout, because I think it's because of Nicolau's most recent performances where it feels like he is that newcomer. But I was actually surprised. He's actually 6-1 in the UFC, but he's on a 3-fight. Yeah, but he's on a 3-fight win streak now, including the win over Cape, which was actually a split decision, which was kind of here or there, but it was a good fight. And that's why he's kind of just now in that top 10. He's the younger guy. Both guys have a lot of experience. They like to go to the distance. This is going to be kind of that technical, more slower paced bout. Maybe Elliott puts some pressure on him. He's on a win streak too. We'll see what happens.
Last one to talk about, this is one that more for me. Phil Hawes. I'm a big fan of Phil Hawes, and he's back against Darren Wynn. This fight might not end up being very exciting, but I am very high on Phil Hawes. And he gets a matchup with Darren Wynn, who is seemingly nobody's favorite fighter. I like Darren Wynn. I think he's a funny guy, but he is not the most exciting fighter in the world. And, man, does he just make things weird by just being in the divisions he's in. He's like 5'5", but he's 185 pounds.
Yeah.
And he struggles to make that sometimes. He's going to obviously try to wrestle this fight for 3 rounds. It'll be up to Phil Hawes to keep things on the feet. Phil Hawes, this is going to be a weird fight to watch because Phil Hawes is fucking huge for this division. So I don't know. I just don't see Darren Wynn being able to really hold him down, but I guess we'll find out. Dominic, be honest. Are you excited about this fight or no?
Yes and no, because if Phil Hawes wins, I expect it to be pretty damn convincing. And when you tune into this fight, by the way, you're going to think this is 2 different weight classes because Phil Hawes is going to be 6 inches taller and has a 7.5-inch reach advantage. So I just want everybody to know they are both fighting at the same weight class. But yes, if Phil Hall wins, I think it's going to be exciting, fast-paced, big knockout. But Darren wins, he's more than likely going to implement a very grapple-heavy approach. And when he does, it's not always the most exciting way to win fights.
Top control than
yes,
for him.
exactly.
That's
so
fine.
I'm not saying he can't prove me wrong. He's got 4 KO finishes in his career. So we'll see how he does here. I can't wait to see the size difference. Can Darren Wynn close the distance and kind of implement his game plan? Because he did that against Antonio Arroyo. The size difference in that one was nuts, and he dominated that fight. So we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like I was going to say something else, but yeah. I'm excited for. I like Phil Halls a lot. So
undefeated in the UFC, man.
Yeah, he did have the one dud against Imavov, but besides that, the guy's been really fun to watch, I think. So be on the lookout if you guys are checking out this card. Be on the lookout for Phil Halls. We will see you guys on Monday again. That'll be when we do our recap for the weekend. But yeah, until then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
Find me on Twitter, on Instagram at DCLE14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, go interact with the podcast on Twitter, on Instagram at BAJ_MMA podcast.
For me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at NTBaker_. If you go to my bio, there's a link that'll take you to the link tree, which will provide you a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with the social media platforms. So that includes, but it's not limited to, kind of is. The Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there, baby. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor.
Shout out
to Anchor. First, leaving a voice message. Second, if you would like to leave becoming a supporter of the podcast, if you'd like to leave a small sum of money, all that money will go back into improving the quality of the podcast. But leave a voice message,
please.
But that's it. We're out. We'll see y'all on Monday.
Bye. Have a nice time.